Hi folks, it's Andy. Welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. Okay, here we are for another week of fantastic questions. We don't quite have as many as we had last week, so we should fire through today's episode reasonably fast. Let's see how we get on. Before we jump into these questions though, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, you know, all the YouTube stuff, but most importantly, shop at KendoStar.com. KendoStar is the best Kendo equipment website in the universe. And the multiverse, actually. Now, of course, I'd say that because I own the place. So I would say that. But everybody agrees with me. You can check our Trustpilot rating. You can see our reviews. You can ask everyone who's ever used KendoStar, which is basically everybody, will tell you how brilliant and amazing it is. So shop at KendoStar. You get great stuff, great service, get this great YouTube channel. Everyone's a winner. Okay, so shop at KendoStar. Right, okay, let's get into these questions right now. Andy Sensei, may I ask more about the beautiful one-of-a-kind Great Wave of Kanagawa Do, which is sold out already? Is this in the regular lineup in the door selection? How do we take care of it? Can we put lacquer over it so it doesn't get scratched and banged up? It's so pretty, and the Great Wave of Kanagawa is my wife's favourite art piece. So, in terms of, is it in the regular lineup? The clue is in the words one of a kind. It's not part of it. It was a one-off that we made. Could we make it again? Potentially. I'd be very reluctant to make it exactly the same as we made previously, as it was indeed a one-of-a-kind item. So if you're interested in something like that, then get in touch. We'll see what we can set up for you. Don't expect it to happen quickly. That thing took a long time to make. In terms of how you take care of it, it's a kijido, so you can't get it wet. I wouldn't recommend lacquering over it. It is going to get scratched and banged up as you use it. It's probably more of a display piece than one that you would wear every week at your dojo, maybe just for special occasions, to be honest. Would be my advice on that. But yeah, that's what I'd say in terms of that. It's obviously it's a beautiful door. I get that. But if you want something similar, send us a message. We'll see what we can sort out. All right. But I can't make it exactly the same as the last one. Hi Andy, I'm about to get back into Kendo after a 2-year gap in training. I trained for a year and a half before I had to stop because of the pandemic and the fact that I moved to a new city. Just before that, I was Nikyu and was about to go for Ikkyu. I'm really nervous about how I'm going to perform now, as I was very proud of my progress before. What advice would you give to someone in my situation? What should I be focusing on in Keiko? I'm UK based, by the way, and my hope is to maybe attempt Ikkyu in about 6 months' time, then Shodan as soon as I can after that. Thank you for your help, and I always enjoy the content. Thank you very much. You need to work on making sure that your strikes have proper fumikomi and you're leaping from your left leg with fumikiri, all right? Watch my video about fumikomi and my 0 to Shodan videos about striking, okay, correct striking, because we go over fumikomi in that as well. All right, if you can make strikes with fumikomi, you'll get Ikkyu and you'll probably get Shodan. All right, so that's what you need to focus on. Just that do fumikomi. Okay, sounds simple, it's not so easy. All right, I know it's something that lots of us struggle with in the beginning, so that's all you need to work on. Next one, is there a major difference or purpose between the different fabrics in the grip or palm? Is it called tenuchi? Yeah, it's called tenuchi for the Kote. For example, perforated versus non-perforated types of leather or skin. So there's different materials or leathers that you can use for the palm of the Kote. And it is called tenoichi. Traditionally it's deer skin, okay, deer skin, and it's usually the sort of most traditional one is like a smoked deer skin, which is like a brown deer skin. And we tend to use bleached deer skin, which is white. It's durability wise, it's the same. I just prefer it because it feels a little bit softer than the smoked stuff, and it doesn't have the same smell. I know some people like the smell of the smoked one. I'm not a massive fan of it personally, and I'm particularly not a massive fan of it like lingering on my hands for days after I've worn a new pair of Kote. So we tend to use the bleached one. They're generally the sort of nicest feeling and pretty durable material you can use. There's synthetic versions of deerskin as well. We use that in a lot of our Borga sets as well. The new synthetic deerskin, super durable too. It's very, very durable. It doesn't have quite the same soft feel as the genuine stuff. It doesn't feel quite as nice, but it's a great substitute. Other options are what they call micro punch, and usually this is synthetic, but I have seen it in real deerskin as well. We don't use it at all because it does tend to obviously it's full of holes. It's perforated with loads of holes, and it does tend to wear out a lot faster. It's already got holes in it, right? So those holes get bigger and bigger. So obviously, as we sell a lot, most of our Borgu is sold outside of Japan, where it's not so easy to just easily get the palms replaced. We tend not to use that because it just doesn't stand up in terms of durability. And then the other option is cow leather, which is it's another sort of substitute for deer leather. It can look very similar, especially when it's new, but it doesn't react to moisture very well at all. So we don't use cow leather at all for any of our Kote because it's just not a great material. When it gets wet and dries, it goes very hard and then it starts to tear. So it's not very durable and it's not very comfortable. Even though when it's brand new, it's almost hard to tell the difference between that and real deerskin. But as you use it, it's rubbish. So that's basically that in a nutshell. Hi Andy Sensei, I'm the super duper long message guy from last week. I'll keep my message short this week. My first question is, I've been advised by my dojo, excuse me, at my dojo by a senior member of using the shoulder muscle to start a strike. I tried at home, but I find when you raise your shinai over your head before a men or do strike, my left elbow is pointing forward below my chin. By using the shoulder muscle, I tend to turn the left elbow pointing left at eye level, and as the elbow travels extra distance, the strike as a whole slows down. What's your opinion? Second question, I want to ask your opinion about a DIY target product for Kendo practice for people like me who can only train once a week for 2 hours, who can practice more at home, especially men. I saw a South Korean YouTube clip that there's a frame with a car tire as a target. I wonder if there's a standard frame dummy like a Wing Chun wooden dummy exists. I use a painting stick and a bucket and a volleyball to make a men target. Okay, not as useful. Last question, when doing suburi at home, would it be beneficial wearing Kote or bare hands? I hope this message is not super duper long this time. Okay, so first one about how to swing the shinai. Yeah, if you're making the large swings, it should come from your shoulders. Yeah, your kamae, from your kamae, straight up from your shoulders this way. All right, but you shouldn't have your elbows out like this. All right, elbows not out like this, in like this. Okay, men. It's my shoulders that's doing the work here. Yeah, and then as I bring down, squeeze and squeeze here like this. Squeeze a little bit of my elbow and mainly my wrist. Squeeze for that last bit of tenuity here. Pam, pam, this way. So lifting is with the shoulders, okay? About the DIY target, like a practice dummy. I'm not a massive advocate of the whole practice dummy thing. They can be very useful. The tire one is useful. It's pretty good. You see it a lot in Japanese schools. And it's mainly for tenuichi practice, so for striking properly, yeah? Because the tire gives quite good feedback for that. I'm not a massive fan of the practice dummies otherwise, because I don't think they necessarily help a great deal with your technique. But like a makeshift one like you've made can be useful. I'd use it to mainly focus on the actual striking though, and think about using those shoulders properly to do so. And about doing suburi at home, wearing the kote or bare hands, both, there's a benefit to both. If you're not wearing the kote, you can concentrate a little bit more on making sure you're holding the shinai properly, and have the correct grip, doing the correct tenoichi action, the squeezing action, and doing with the kote is also really useful because, of course, you do kendo with the kote on, so it is good to get used to swinging the shinai wearing the kote too. So I would do both. Okay, I would do both. All right, I hope that makes sense and is useful. Next one, I'm a beginner and I have arthritis in my right knee. I can easily do seiza and sonkyo. With the right technique, is Fumikomi supposed to put a load on the knee, or with technique and muscle can the load be minimized? So Fumikomi doesn't have to be a hard stamp on the floor. It's a launch from the left leg, but you know, obviously there is a load placed on your knee when that happens. I can't necessarily comment for your specific situation. I'm not a medical professional. I don't know anything about that sort of thing. But all I would say is if Fumikomi is not a prerequisite of Kikentai no Ichi, okay? So, contrary to popular belief, there are people who can't do the Fumikomi. But you've got to be careful not to slip into the trap of not trying to do it and then saying, well, I can't do it anyway. You know, you have to, it's better to do Fumikomi if you can. It's better to do it. And if you absolutely can't for health reasons, which there are some people that can't, then there's other ways to use Kikentai no Ichi, all right? What you have, the problem is when people that can't do Fumikomi, either for health reasons or because they don't have the ability, then try to do like Suriashi instead, but it's still not Kikentai no Ichi. The Kikentai no Ichi rhythm, should we say, is different for strike with Fumikomi and strike with Suriashi, for example. But it's hard for me to just say from this small piece of text exactly what the best thing for you is. My advice would be to try to do it, and if it's difficult or painful, then seek other ways with the help of your teachers. Okay. Next one. What are your thoughts on coloured Hakama and gi and kamon on Kendogi? What are my thoughts on it? I don't think you should put the kamon on your Kendogi. In Kendo, the place to wear the kamon is either on the door or on the Hakama Koshita is usually the place. Seems a bit weird to put it on the Kendogi. I know, like on a more like what you end up doing if you do that is you're turning a Kendogi, which is like a somewhat casual item of sportswear. It's wafuku though, it's not yofuku. It's in Japanese, it's wafuku. It's a Japanese clothing, but it's not formal clothing. Kendogi is not formal clothing. It's like everyday clothing. So to then sort of adorn that with kamon is a little bit weird. If you know what I mean. It's a bit like wearing this is not really the right analogy, I guess, but I guess it's a bit like, I don't know, wearing a necktie with a t-shirt or something like that, or a polo shirt. It's a little bit not quite right. So I wouldn't necessarily go down that. I mean, it's fine if you really want to do it. I've seen it before, but it does look a little bit odd to me. Because it's not the Montsuki or the like Haori or something like that often does have it. Coloured Hakama and Kendogi. No, if the colour you're talking about is like eye, which is dark navy blue, then yeah, sure. Or perhaps white in some occasions. Otherwise, probably not. Probably not. There are some coloured Hakama out there. You can get like green ones or red ones or pink ones or purple ones, but they're not for Kendo really. All right. The Kendo company made them a few years ago to sell to kids, and very quickly most of the tournaments in Japan banned them, so you're not allowed to wear them. So yeah. Let's stick to there's a reason we use the aizome in Kendo, right? And the color, it has a rich and important history to Japanese culture, the dark blue eye iro, okay? And I think it's important to continue that through Kendo. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to always wear the aizome Kendogi, actually the real aizome Kendogi, but at least, you know, the color of Kendo uniform is that color for a reason. And I think personally it's better to continue it. All right, I think it's better to continue it. Okay. Here's one that might elicit some discussion with your wife. Okay, well, she's not here, but I've been told that female and male Seme are different. How are they different? I'm assuming Seme of body and Seme of sword are the same, but perhaps Seme of spirit is different in some way. Perhaps just every individual does Seme in their own way. Anyway, curious about your thoughts on the matter. In my experience, male and female Seme, Seme being the pressure that you put on the other person to have them feel like you will strike them or that they have to strike you. In my experience, they're not different. There's probably an argument to say that everybody's Seme is different, but I don't think it's based on the person's sex, you know. I think that in my experience, as I say, and I've done Kendo with some very high level senseis, both male and female. I'm out of focus there, I'm back in. Both male and female, and I wouldn't say, oh, this is like the female Seme or this is the male Seme or whatever. Of course, different body shapes, sizes, stuff like that, builds, have a different influence as to how their Seme is applied. But it's not to say that like, oh, well, that's a female, so their Seme is making me feel like they're going to do, let's say, Nukido, which is popular waza with female compared to male Kendoka. Usually from a point of view of practicality, because they're often a lot shorter, especially in Japan, right? But no, I don't think there's a difference. I literally don't. I can't think of a time where I've thought, you know, and I can think of times when I've done Kendo with really high level female senseis, and they've put the same sort of pressure on me, the same sort of Seme on me that I get from the high level male senseis too. So I don't think that's a real thing. Of course, it's not to say that their Kendo is the same. Yeah, of course there is a difference in how males and females do Kendo in some ways, often. And I'm talking in terms of there's a pattern that it tends to be that way, rather than all females do Kendo in a specific way and all males do in a specific way as well. It's not like that either. But the interesting thing about Kendo, of course, is that, you know, it's quite common for males and females to practice together or to even do shinai together. So it is, you know, there is obviously a different dynamic often, a different choice of waza perhaps, and I'd say it's more based on, it's not based on like you know, males and females think differently or Seme differently or something. I don't think it's based on that. It's just based on the practical sense of like probably build and body size, to be honest. There's exceptions, of course. Right, what are the general training space requirements or necessities for Kendo? Floor types, minimum ceiling height, etc. Let's say for 10 to 12 adult Kendoka or so. So if you've got like 10 to 12 people, then you need enough space for what? Like 5 to 6 pairs, right? Yeah, so think about that in terms of the size of space. You obviously need enough ceiling height. I'm not going to give you sort of figures because I don't know like how many feet or whatever, but you need enough ceiling height to be able to swing a shinai over your head comfortably without hitting the ceiling or any low hanging light. I remember when I was looking at setting up our club, one of the places that that we looked at, it was high ceilings, but they had a load of air conditioning pipes in the sort of rafters of the ceiling, and it made it too low for us. We'd be hitting them with the shinai. So that's one thing. Then the floor, yeah, the ideal is like a spring wooden floor, right? That's obviously the best, right? But if not that, there's these sort of synthetic type ones as well, but obviously not something that's too hard, that somebody's going to get hurt on. All right. I know some people put mats down and stuff like that, but that's not ideal, really, to be honest. You need something that's got some feedback, some sort of like some sort of spring to it, if possible, is the best, in my opinion. Next one. Okay, what have we got here? We've got Dear Fish Sensei. First of all, thank you for the content you publish. Kendo RANT has helped me enjoy my tedious commute to work. Good. My comment is about if Kendo is special among other Budo. I believe it is. I first dan rank in a Korean style of karate, and I'm a relatively new practitioner of Kendo. My first exposure to Kendo was a demonstration at a karate tournament I was participating in. Being 16 at the time, I had not seen anything like it, and I was in complete awe. I imagine it would be like how a medieval Japanese peasant felt the first time they saw a samurai. There's a tournament here in Southern California, part of the Nikkei Games, where karate, judo, and kendo are going on at the same time in the same gymnasium. Karate and judo are on the sides, and the center is kendo, the crown jewel of Budo. Thank you again. I'm always just interested in your thoughts. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I don't know if Kendo's special or not compared to other Budo. It's certainly unique, though. You know, it probably is special, but so are the others, right? In their respective ways. I think it'd be wrong to necessarily say like karate is not as, you know, is something lesser than Kendo. I remember, this is a bit of a tangent, but I remember a couple of years ago, was it? I don't know, like the last few years have been like a bit of a time warp, haven't they? But when the Olympics was on in Japan, was that last year? Was it this year? Was it the year before? I don't know. Whenever that was, there was a big uproar on the internet about the karate event. And one of the finals, I think it was in a Kendo Facebook page, actually. And people sort of, I think what happened is the winner was knocked out by his opponent, and therefore his opponent was disqualified. And I remember a lot of the comments around that time were like, oh, this is why we should never put Kendo in the Olympics. It'll lose what it really is. Look, this is karate. And the person who knocked out the other person was the one who lost. That means that karate is meaningless or something like that. And I remember thinking about it, and I think I even commented. I thought, well, that's not really right, is it? Because Kendo's not about how to cut people up with swords. And I don't know much about karate, but what I do know is that it is karate do. It's not. It is a do. It's budo. And from obviously from the outcome of that that karate shiai, knocking the other person out is against the rules, right? Perhaps you have to have some form of control over your strikes, as you do in Kendo. You could liken this to a Kendo shiai. If in the final of a Kendo shiai, somebody hits the other person on the men so hard that they're knocked unconscious, they would be disqualified, okay? They'd be disqualified. And the argument would not be, well, that would kill him with a real sword. Why, you know, I sort of think that karate, obviously, from what I saw from that, obviously has some shared philosophy, at least, with Kendo, and that it's probably not just about beating up people or knocking people out, just like Kendo is not about chopping people up with swords. So, yeah, perhaps Kendo is special amongst Budo, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's better. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I don't know. But I do think that we have the tendency to slip into a little bit of elitism with Kendo, and it's not just with Kendo. I think it happens in all aspects of what can I say? Like any activity that people do, they always think it's better than the other ones, right? But I wouldn't say that Kendo is. I would be hesitant to say Kendo is intrinsically better than all the other Budo. Okay, because I just don't know enough about them. All right, it's different to them, and it is special. Kendo is special. It is. I'm not saying it's not. But being special isn't always being better, right? It's not like and I'm not saying there is a better one either. I don't think it's a case of better or not better. Yeah. So I get what you're saying about it being the crown jewel of Budo, but I don't know if it's fair of us to really say that. I get that it's often a lot more impressive than a lot of other Budo, especially to members of the public, because we wear the armor, we strike each other with shinai, it's very loud, we shout, it's much more explosive and active than many other Budo can appear to be from the outside. So I can understand why it can take the centerpiece in an event like that as well. But I am hesitant to say, well, it's better than everything else. Of course I think that. Of course I think that personally, because that's why I do Kendo, not the others. But from an objective point of view, I think it's unfair or wrong, really, to say that Kendo is somehow, more important or more special or better in whatever than other activities, other Budo, like judo. Or people often pick on judo and say, well, judo is just about, judo, look at what happened to judo in the Olympics. It's like, well, yeah, but judo was kind of created with the intention of joining the Olympic Games. The creation of judo has a different purpose to Kendo, in lots of ways, not in every way, of course. But judo definitely has a different purpose in lots of ways to Kendo. So comparing them is unfair to both arts. Or even to say that Kendo is somehow better than football or hockey or baseball or whatever. I think it's just a little bit. I think it's a bit narrow to say that. Kendo's great though. Don't get me wrong. It is the best. My opinion. Right, okay. Hi, Fish Sensei. I hope all is well. My question is about how far down the shinai your nakayori should supposed to be. I've gotten a couple of different ways of measuring it that are wildly conflicting, so I figured I'd ask here. Best way to think about it is like what is it? A third of the I think the best way is like a third of the overall length of the shinai. That's not a bad place for it. And that's about the same place as your datotsubu on the shinai as well. So it kind of easily marks it out. Okay. But don't go too far with it. It's like that, I don't know, what, like 10, 12 inches, something like that. Something like that. Yeah. Don't go too far down with it. Don't go too far up with it. Just judge it by eye. I don't measure it, So I'm about here. I usually do it around, depending on the shinai, because it depends, obviously, but usually the fushi, the nodes on the bamboo, they usually are around a third of the way down anyway. So I usually do it either just above or just below that, depending on where they sit. But sometimes you get shinai where they're pretty high up, so don't do it then. That's a super helpful answer, isn't it? Just look at the pictures and judge by eye. It doesn't have to be laser accurate, okay? Hi Andy, have you ever taken part in or been a spectator at a Tachigiri GI? Would love to hear about it. If not, just your general thoughts on it. Much love, thank you. So a Tachigiri GI is usually when one person has to complete a set number of matches against several opponents. So it's often like 100 or 50 or 100 people. They have to stand and do 50 shiai in a row or 100 shiai in a row. And it's often done as some kind of celebration or like type festival type idea. It's pretty rare. I've never lived in anywhere where they have one. All right, I've only heard of a couple that happen in Japan. So it's not a common thing. So I haven't been to one. I haven't joined one. I haven't seen one other than online. All right. I think my general thoughts on it. I think that it's a fantastic idea. I think it's a great thing. I think it's a really cool take on a shinai event. It's especially good as like a, like a congratulatory thing. Congratulations, you now get to get destroyed by 100 people. Or as like a celebratory or like a festival type thing. It is really cool in that. The downside to it, of course, is that it's not a really easy thing to organize. And especially as it means that like your actual shiaisha, your actual tachigiri, the people who actually do the tachigiri, there's only a very small number of people who can do that each time, right? So you might have 10 people who are going to be the aite. All right. So even for the aite, for the opponents, they've got to do, if it's 100 matches, what they do is, let's say they get someone who's going to do the tachigiri, he or she's got to do 100 matches. And then they get 10 people who they have to, they fight this person 10 times. That's 100, yeah. So even for the aite, that's hard work, right? But it does put a spotlight on just one or two people each time. So there is a little bit of a downside to it in that regard, if you ask me. It's not like a normal shinai where everybody is sort of benefiting from it equally in a way. But I do like it as an idea. I do think it's cool, but I do understand why it's not super popular as well. All right. But I do think it's a great idea and I'd love to go and see one in real life. That's it for today. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Don't forget to shop at KendoStar, most importantly. See you all next time. Bye-bye.